On the evening of September 16, 2011, my wife and I saw 8 UFOs. I reported them to the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON. A few days later, a field investigator from MUFON contacted me to ask a few questions to follow up on the report. One of the questions was, has anyone else in my family ever seen a UFO? What I told him was something he had never heard before. Everyone except my mother has had a UFO sighting over the past 60 years. The following are true accounts from my family.
Okay. Well, that UFO that I saw,
Right.
Your mother can verify that I saw something, because do you remember, Macy, when I came in?
Yeah.
After seeing it, and we lived in...
I didn't see it, but...
No. I just got out of the car on an alley in back of the place we lived, and it was a U-shaped set of apartments. And I walked around, and just as I started to walk through the open air, you know, the sky is open, there's like a kind of an orange glow. It caused me to look up, and whatever this was filled the entire sky above me that I could see between those two wings of that building, and it was moving very slowly, and it was emitting kind of an orange glow, and there was some lights inset into it, and as it went past, the back of it though was like sort of like foggy. It wasn't very distinct, and it just moved across and left me totally startled. And that's when I rushed in, went upstairs, and told your mother. And then I called a radio station and asked if anybody had seen an unidentified flying object. They said no, nothing been reported. And I said, well, I just saw something strange here at Echo Park, going directly over the apartment where I live. And that was it.
And you remember him coming in?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
I mean,
I think that's before David was born.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what year was that? Do you remember?
1953.
Yeah, David was born in
David's
54.
Born March 54.
Well, when I lived in Vestal, New York, the summer of 1964, on Gardner Road, we lived at the top of a mountain, and our neighbor, Mrs. Eldridge, came over to the house and said that she had seen these bright-colored lights, look like something. She said like a spaceship or something had landed out in a field over near where she lives. And so me and my brother Tim and our neighbor Connie went down the hill behind where we lived and looked out across the field, and I saw what looked like a flying saucer going across the sky, and all three of us saw it. And I remember Connie, who lived next door to us, said, "That's round, by George." And that was and it was not an airplane. It was very clearly something very saucer shaped. It's kind of like the Jupiter 2.
No, it was a spaceman.
Spaceman.
I made it out of, the body was a lawnmower, an old lawnmower body with the motor removed, and I made the legs out of some shock absorbers, and I made his neck out of an old spring that I found, and I forget now what his head was made of. Maybe David would remember.
Shock absorbers?
But I
got
know
the picture somewhere.
Yeah, but I've got...
I'll find it.
Didn't you say that was back when there's a lot of the sightings and stuff?
Yeah, in fact, it was about that time that our neighbor claimed he saw, and he was an unbeliever. I mean, he scoffed at the idea of aliens and flying saucers, but he said that he had seen this craft come down over the hill. Said up in our upper pasture they had a big field of clover that they cut for silage. Said it came down up there Said, and I went up and looked, said, you can see these places pressed down like something had landed in the clover. And anyway, he was a believer after that. And also there were reports of flying saucers in Pennsylvania and places like that.
Right.
And so that's what I thought, well, heck, I'll make a space name.
Okay, the one up on the Appalachian Trail, it was probably, I think it was August in New Hampshire.
All right.
And we were in a quarry. What are you doing?
Adjusting the sound, go ahead.
And there's 2 or 3 other people with me, and we're just, looking up at the stars, and we see, or at least I noticed, it looks like some of the stars kind of go out and then come back on. They temporarily disappear. And so I'm looking at it, and then I'm figuring out the reason that they're disappearing is that something is blocking their view temporarily. And the more and more I looked at it, I could start to actually make out the dark spot that was blocking out the stars. And it was a rectangular shape.
Did you say there were other people there with you?
Yeah. We all saw it. And so we were trying to judge how far up it was, and of course somebody said something about weather balloon or something like that. But the more and more we looked at it, and it was going slowly across the sky, but I got the impression that it was really high up.
Right.
Which would mean that it was really, really large also.
Right.
And it just slowly went across the sky until we couldn't see it anymore.
Rectangular.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, there was no light, nothing. It was just like a black.
It was just the absence of stars.
On the evening of September 16th, 2011, my wife and I were leaving a restaurant from Charlotte, North Carolina. We had met some friends there, and while we were standing in the parking lot, I looked up and I saw 3 orange lights flying close together. We see airplanes all the time, so we know what they look like, and I said, planes don't fly that close together, do they? So all 4 of us stopped, watched these lights. The one in the middle went higher than the other 2. I remember it formed a triangle. And as they approached us, they slowly ascended up into the low cloud cover that we had that night and disappeared. They were not making any sounds. There was no noise, jet sounds, helicopter sounds, anything. And at that point, we went, oh, well, we'll see you guys later. And everybody got in their cars and we left. And as we're leaving the parking lot, my wife and I look up and we see 2 more of these lights, and they were flying very close together, and the one on the right either joined the one on the left or flew behind it and then popped back out again. And I said, did you see that? And my wife said yes, she did see that. We continued to drive down south, down Park Road, and I was keeping an eye out. While I was driving, I was refusing to pull over because I kept waiting to see tail lights or something that would indicate that it's just an aircraft. And I saw 3 more approaching. Well, at this point it became a little bit overwhelming, and I thought, well, I'm going to ignore those 3, and I'm going to concentrate on these 2 that are about to fly over us. And as we continued to drive down the road, I looked out the window and I looked up. And as they flew over, I noticed that the bottom looked exactly like the front. There were no lights, nothing. There was no sound. It was completely silent, and they just went on by. And what makes this sighting unusual is the conversation that we had just had over dinner, which was about UFOs.